Kylee Jordan in front and pouring it on at the 16th pole. 4 on the day for Kylee Jordan. And they're off.
I'm Kylee Jordan and I'm a jockey, and currently I'm at Prairie Meadows in Iowa, and this is where I grew up.
So we grew up in Northeast Iowa, south of Fredericksburg, Iowa, north of Waterloo. When you're from Iowa, you always talk about the biggest town you're from. So Waterloo, Iowa, we're about 45 minutes north. She did get leading rider at Will Rogers. She finished 13 wins ahead of the second place person, I guess. And we came into Iowa, and Alex Burzer's the godfather here. We've said it for years, like nobody can touch Alex Burzer. In the first couple of weeks, she's, about 5th, 6th in the standings here, and she keeps kind of chipping away. And here the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think she's been the leading rider here, which when she was like 1 behind Alex, I'm like, who would have ever thought? Like, who would have ever imagined that she would be next in line to Alex, who Alex has been a great mentor to Kylee.
It kind of makes me proud. You know what? If you teach somebody to do something and they do it better than you do, wouldn't that make you proud? I mean, it really does. And I'm trying to beat her for leading rider, don't get me wrong. And when she comes up to me, I'm not an empty saddle. I'm not just gonna, I'm gonna get on my belly and I'm gonna try to beat her. And, when we're going up the backside, sure, I'm going to do things and I'm going to try to put myself in a good position where I can beat her. But at the end of the day, yeah, sure, it makes me proud to see her. Like I said, ain't no empty saddle.
I don't know as of last night, but she was leading rider coming into the weekend, I think up like by 3 wins. So we'll see what happens. I mean, she's had really great success in her career in a very short time. She's a natural. You get big trainers at Oaklawn that are like, yep, she's a natural. You get different agents say that she's an agent. Brian Assman is her agent here in Iowa. He's done a great job of campaigning for her.
I started riding last year at Will Rogers Downs, and then she came here after that meet got over, and I worked for her last year here at Prairie Meadows, and then she went to Oaklawn. I sent her to Jose Santos, the top agent at Oaklawn, and then she rode at Oaklawn last year, and then she went to Will Rogers, and she was leading rider at Will Rogers, and kind of just people like her, and came here, and she's doing real well now. So
I joke with Todd and Kylee that the reason Brian took her was simply because he can have 2 journeymen and an apprentice, and let's be serious, Brian likes to hustle horses. He's committed to going to her with her to Oaklawn over the winter. Kind of passed her off last winter, and they've just got really pretty decent communication between the two of them. So I definitely think her success does have a lot to do with Brian and being able to campaign for her, and hopefully they can kind of keep that momentum going into Oaklawn. I keep telling everybody back home that as an apprentice rider, this success is not what you see. A lot of apprentice riders, in my opinion, have to work harder. So right now Kylee is an apprentice rider, so she's got to have either 40 wins or riding for a full year before she becomes a full journeyman. Right now I think she's sitting at maybe 120 plus wins, and she's got her apprenticeship until September 17th. She did take some time off after the Prairie Meadows meet last summer to go to college online, and then went to Oaklawn. So apprentices usually do, again, it's 40 wins or a year. So she's obviously in that year, but she's sitting at, like I said, I think 120 wins. Don't quote me on that. I used to keep score, not so much anymore. There's kind of a little bit of buzz kind of behind the scenes that she might be nominated for an Eclipse Award. I don't want to jinx myself by any means, but I don't see any reason why she wouldn't. She's from the Midwest, which might hurt a little bit because they tend to kind of take people from the outside coasts. So my understanding is the Eclipse Award is kind of the best of the best in the United States. So I would imagine she's at least going to be nominated, which again, when you're looking at a girl that's graduated with a class of like 46 to be on the national level, it's overwhelming, it's amazing. So for the success that she's had as a young rider that 2 years ago I would have said was not going to be a jockey, just kind of goes to prove her natural horsemanship and knowing the horse. Everybody's like, she's got magic hands, it's unbelievable, and I can see it, but I don't feel it necessarily because she's always rode horses that way.
When I was younger, we went to the tracks in Nebraska with my parents, and that's kind of where we started. Me and my sister would run around the track. Everybody kind of knew us. Everybody kind of took us under our wing, and it was just like a whole big family.
We raced horses pretty much since me and Todd have been married, so 20 plus years. Traveled a lot with the kids. We took them on vacation. It was always like to Oaklawn and Hot Springs, Arkansas, or Oklahoma City, where Remington Park is. Nebraska, we ran horses out there. We packed them kids up a lot. We traveled a lot.
And then as I started getting older, we started coming to the track in Iowa just because it was closer to home. We were able to go down there about every weekend instead of just every once in a while.
So important for us to have a home base for the girls, just to make sure that they knew where their roots were. Yeah, it was a lot, but I look back on pictures of them growing up and what they seen outside of Bremer County, where we grew up, was a lot of adventures. There's a whole world out there.
We didn't always enjoy coming to the track after we got a little bit older, like into high school, because we couldn't do a whole lot.
Actually really funny growing up, my sister and I, we both hated the racetrack, but now we both have careers in it. We just didn't like that we were able to break my dad's 2-year-olds when we were younger, and then they were coming to the track and we weren't old enough to gallop them on the track yet.
Yeah, so growing up, rode from, I think Taylin was 9 days old the first time she was ever on a horse. Not a long ride, it was more or less just around the loop of a driveway. Kylee, I think, was like 11 days. We did a lot of trail riding, camping, big organized trail rides. They broke ponies. They had cousins that rode, so I mean, it was always a ton of fun to be able to do that. She was 4 years old and she rode a quarter horse that was 4 years old on an organized trail ride with 200 plus horses, and she would be loping down the lane. I look back on those pictures and videos now and I kind of question my parenting, like what was I thinking? But I was never nervous. I mean, I knew the horse and I knew her ability.
We both started galloping when we were 16. My sister was a natural, still is a natural, still coaches me through it. Not so much coaches me through it, but gives me pointers because it takes me, or I have to work harder about it.
I mean, we were still back and forth between the racetrack, but we would stay at home to do chuck wagon races more frequently than we did come to the track, just because we could participate a little bit more.
We took our ponies to like county fairs, and we were a part of like the chuck wagon races, and we would have pony races as a part of the chuck wagon races. They would shoot a blank gun and we would race our ponies in front of the grandstands, just like a little, I don't know, maybe like a quarter of a mile or something, but the crowd loved it and it was a really fun time. Because at that time we were too young to race our thoroughbreds at the chuck wagon. They had this thing called the tattoo race.
Tattoo races are a part of the chuck wagon races, and it's a type of race where there's off-the-track thoroughbreds race against other off-the-track thoroughbreds.
So when we were old enough to race our thoroughbreds at the chuck wagon races, it's just like a little half-mile race in Western tack. I got to do it for a year before my sister was able to, because I was older, and I did pretty well. When she got old enough to do it, I had a really slow horse at that time, and she had a pretty nice horse for the chuck wagon races.
I was probably 13 when I did that, when my first race. There was a horse that I liked at my dad's that couldn't race at the track any longer, and I was able to race him at the chuck wagon races, and he was pretty fast, so I did good.
She would just win all the time.
And my sister didn't have as fast of a horse, but her horse was smarter than mine, so she would have to pony me to the starting line and finish line because I couldn't ever get my horse there by myself.
Her horse was kind of crazy too, to the point where like I ponied her up on my really slow horse, and they would start the race, and I would be holding on to her like when they started the race, just because her horse was crazy. And then as soon as they started like the gun sound, and she was like already 4 jumps ahead of me, and I was losing the race. But it was still really fun because I always knew that she could ride, and she was a really good, strong rider.
I know, like with sisters, everybody's like, oh, my girls fought. These girls really didn't. I mean, they're each other's best friends. I don't even know how to explain it. It's remarkable. I'm pretty sure they talk how many times a day. Taylyn's got a strong personality, so Kylee, she's just like, oh, it's all good. So I think they balance each other really well, but they've always rode together. You know, since they were really, really little, they rode together. And in fact, just last week, they came home for a day, and the first thing they wanted to do was saddle up and go for a ride. And for me as a parent, to be able to watch them want to do that in Northeast Iowa is remarkable. And that's where they come back to. They've got to, you know, kind of get their bearings back, is what I always say when you're traveling a lot. So yeah, they still come home and they still trail ride down the waterways in Fredericksburg, Iowa.
It's just fun to grow up on horseback next to your sister.
So even though that we were galloping horses for my dad in the summers and working for him and doing everything, doing a lot, I should say, we still had to go home during the winters, and about fall time we would go home because we were still in school.
The girls both attended Sumner Fredericksburg Consolidated School. Both graduated with a class of about 40 to 50 kids. So being that she's kind of doing a big thing is pretty remarkable for Northeast Iowa right now.
So in high school, I was in basketball all 4 years. I did cross country my freshman and sophomore year, maybe my junior year. And I did track my freshman year, but I didn't stick track out because it was during the spring, and I would rather be riding horses than running around the track. So my senior year, me and my friend Liz started wrestling.
I'm Liz Fox, and I'm Kylie's best friend. Kylee and I went to high school together. We played basketball and wrestling together. Well, Kylee played basketball, and I sat on the sidelines and cheered her on. In wrestling, I did get to kick her butt because I got a few pounds on her, just a few. I let Kylee beat me sometimes because I felt bad for her. Other than that, I usually whooped her.
And that was really fun. I liked that a lot because I was able to kind of work as myself and not in a team.
Outside of school, Kylee and I went on a lot of trail rides, which mostly consisted of the gravel roads around Kylie's house. I never knew how to saddle my own horse or put the bridle on, so Kylee had to do that for me until she started yelling at me and made me do it myself.
But then when we were able to get our license, we started coming to the track more, and we would gallop and help my dad out in the barn. We would paddock horses and just do about everything that we could to make money.
They kind of just had this business sense about them that, in my opinion, like kids don't have. So I think the first time they broke a set of ponies and sold them, I think they were like 6 and 8 years old. They got their checks from it, and half of it went into savings and half of it was supposed to be kind of fun money. But they just kind of started putting money away. I remember, I don't know, maybe 10 and 12 years old. They had enough money, you know, saved up that they went and bought a brand new saddle. I mean, they just kind of were always so self-sufficient. So I don't really worry too much about them managing their money or doing any of that. So we'll see. Big success, you know, Kylie's a saver, so she puts all that money away, and we'll see. Hopefully she'll let me retire.
So
Growing up, my sister and I, we each had a miniature pony that we would buy in the spring, ride all summer, and sell it in the fall, kind of like our little side hustle, but it really taught us to be better riders, and we would do all sorts of things with these ponies. We would run down the waterway, through the cornfields, through the woods. We'd ride to my grandparents' house, we'd ride to my cousin's house. There really wasn't anywhere we wouldn't go on these ponies. And I think that's probably the last time that I was able to beat my sister in a race because my pony just happened to be faster. After that, everything went out the window.
Or in high school, actually, I was taking college classes and I took online schooling out of college. And then while I was at the racetrack.
When she graduated, she was the graduating class of COVID. So she graduated early without wanting to graduate early. Kylee started galloping down here at Prairie Meadows one summer. She galloped for Carl Broberg. She always helps Dad out in the barn, but it was kind of like push her out, you know, let her really experience what is it like outside of the family business. So she galloped for Carl Broberg one summer. I think it was her sophomore going into her junior year, I think. And I think it just kind of taught her like the repetition, the ropes, like what it was really like, the consistent, you know, a little bit bigger barn.
My senior year, actually, COVID hit and I was lucky enough to go to Nebraska to the racetrack and I started galloping horses out there. And then after that, me and my sister and her boyfriend, Lane, packed up and we went to Houston. And I started working for Steve Asmussen, which helped me out tremendously because I was getting on really nice horses and I was able to work on my form and perfect myself as a rider or keep working on perfecting myself. And then the meet was almost over in Houston and my dad wanted to go down to Claremore to the racetrack Will Rogers, and I packed up from Houston and went there to help my dad out. And that's where I started working a ton of horses for Francisco Bravo. And that helped me out a lot. I was working alongside Floyd Wethy and he helped me out quite a bit. And from there I got my license and now I'm here.
She never really wanted to be a jockey. It's not something we ever thought of, but she just looks so good on a horse and still looks good on a horse. And she started working horses and everything came really easy to her and it fell in place like one thing after another, and she got to work horses. She worked for Steve Asmussen in Houston and she just said one day, okay, I'm gonna try to be a jockey and I'm gonna do it.
In Houston, when I was getting on horses for Steve Asmussen, I was kind of running and seeing if I could get my weight down because I kind of had an idea that I wanted to ride, or maybe if it could happen, it could happen.
And I think there, everything just really kind of started coming together for Kylee. And she was really just kind of like, I think I could kind of see it behind the scenes that she was starting to think a little bit more about it. And then her dad went to Will Rogers with a string of horses and she's like, well, I'm going where Dad's going. So she packed up from Houston and went to Claremore, Oklahoma, Will Rogers, and she started working a bunch of horses out of the gates, and it just kind of all started rolling.
I left Houston to go to Will Rogers because my dad was coming down there to get his horses ready for Iowa and run a couple. And when I went up there, I was able to work horses for Francisco Bravo, and then it all kind of just fell into place. So I started working a lot of horses and everything was going really good. I went and talked to the stewards and I was able to get my license, but it was a really like spur of the moment kind of thing because I didn't really think that I was going to be a jockey, and then it just turned out and it all worked out.
So she called one day in March of 2021 and said, hey Mom, I think I'm gonna give this thing a try. I think I'm gonna try riding. And I was like, okay, like what do we do? You know, like what do we have to do in order to like get you there? She's like, I don't know, I'll find out or whatever. A few days later she calls and she had talked to the stewards down there and they're like, oh, you've got a working a set of 3, you've got to come out of the gates, you've got to, like, there was 3 things that she needed to do. I'm like, oh, you could have that done tomorrow, like, you can do this, you know? She kind of got quiet for about 2 weeks, and Todd's like, is she gonna do this? Is she not gonna do this? And I'm like, you know, it's a big step, like a big commitment. I said, she'll come around when it's time. And I said, you know, and then like 2 weeks later, she calls and she's like, well, we've got everything lined up for tomorrow. The stewards are coming to the gates at 8:30, and it was just like clockwork. And by Tuesday afternoon, at 11 o'clock, if she FaceTimes during work hours, I know it's pretty serious. So she FaceTimed and she's holding this certificate and she's like, I did it. I've got my apprenticeship. So that was on a Tuesday. Wednesday, they started naming her on horses. She didn't have jock boots. She had 1 pair of jock pants. She had nothing. So it was a mad dash to Oklahoma City to see what her quarter horse rider friends could scrape up for her in order to ride. And from there, here we are, right at about a year later.
So when she was down there in Houston, galloping for Steve Asmussen, I was out riding down there in the morning. So I kind of got to watch her get on some really nice horses and really start to develop her form and her riding style. And by the way that she was trying to look good and working on herself and working on these horses, I kind of knew that it was in the back of her head. And then when she said that she was gonna go for it, I kind of had a suspicion that that was kind of what she was working towards, so I wasn't all that surprised. I think what come to me as a shock, well, I always knew my sister could ride and that she was a natural, but what come to me as a shock as her natural race riding ability is from the get-go, she's been able to rate a horse really well and ride smart really well. So I think that was the biggest shock, or how much patience she has on a horse, because if you knew her, you know that she's not that patient, and she's kind of a right now, go get her. So I think that came to me as more of a shock, her ability to do that, than her saying that she was gonna ride, if that makes sense.
Will Rogers, when I first got there, it was my first time there, but I seemed to fit in pretty good there. I mean, I knew a few people from there, but I made a lot of good relationships right away, and one of the biggest ones was with Francisco Bravo, and he let me get on a lot of horses in the morning. I galloped for him, I worked horses, and he actually put me on my first horse, and that was a really cool experience because I didn't know that my sister was going to be ponying me, and she did, and my whole family came down from Iowa to Oklahoma to watch me, and it was just really, really cool, I think, to have my whole family being there to support me.
First race, of course, we made the trip to Claremore, Oklahoma, and kind of behind the scenes, her sister Taylin was going to pony her to her first race. So what that means is Taylin is going to be the person that's going to lead her on the other horse to the starting gates for the first time. Taylin's idea, she got everything together.
I called down there because I knew some of the pony people in Claremore, and I was like, can I get a pony and can I pony her for her first race? And so they set it all up for me, and I was able to do that.
Got a pony lined up, got all of this behind the scenes to be able to surprise Kylee. I'm a big picture taker, so I'm like, I'm gonna take pictures, I'm gonna take videos. And I sat back and said, no, I'm just gonna enjoy the moment. So I did a little bit of a video of her coming out of the paddock for the first time, and that split second then when she hit the track and seen her sister, yeah, that's it. Big mom win there. And so.
But it was actually a really terrible idea because I was way more nervous than she was. And as soon as I hooked onto her, she didn't know that I was gonna pony her. So as soon as I hooked onto her, I was like, this is a bad idea. And she's like, why? I said, I'm so nervous.
Taylin took her to the gates for the first time. Kylee came back, obviously was surprised and like, you knew this the whole time. And I said, yeah, I did. And she goes, well, if you sent her to be my wingman, she was more nervous than I was. So them two girls, they've always just kind of had each other's backs.
I think she says that I was more nervous than her, but I think she was probably just as nervous because we were pulling up to I was leading her up to the gates, and she goes to take her goggles down, and she pulls all the goggles off of her helmet and they're around her neck, and she just looks at me with these wide eyes, and she's like, you got me? And I'm like, yeah, I got you. And then she fixes her goggles and puts them back on. But then she loads into the gates and she kicks them, and it's hard to see like as a pony person because you're on the back of the track when the race is running, but it literally looked from back there like she won her first race, but she got beat out in nose. One of her first races ever, she runs second in, and I guess that's kind of a telltale sign of how her career is going to go because, I mean, she's been pretty successful ever since.
Yeah, we get asked a lot, like, where, like, Kylie's success, like, where does it come from? What drives her? And I don't know the answer. She's just a little girl that wants to wake up and ride a horse every single day. Success-wise, she's very humble. We started a racing page for her just to kind of keep everybody back home kind of involved. Otherwise, I was constantly getting henpecked with, you know, text messages and voicemails. So I'm like, I'm just gonna start, you know, this race page. So we can do entries, race replays when she wins, and we just started kind of fan photos. Anything above that, it's a no-go from Kylee because she's just humble. She just doesn't like the spotlight. So I mean, I think with the race page, it brings a lot of excitement. There's people back home that never even knew horse racing existed, and I tell you what, they comment, they are watching that page, they are watching those race replays. I mean, we had a group of probably, I want to say 20-some people or more come down earlier this spring, and they're just amazed, right? And they follow that page, and if I go to New Hampton for a hair appointment or to see my sister or my mom and I walk into a restaurant, they're like, oh, it's Kylee Jordan's mom, and we watch her race videos, like, thank you for posting those, this is great, you know? So I think the racing page has really brought in awareness that horse racing does exist in Iowa. Just to have a girl from small town Iowa be able to be on this platform is amazing.
So I get to watch Kylee race all the time. It's really fun to watch her race. It can be scary at times when somebody's trying to cut her off or she's doing something scary. I'd like to think I'm Kylee's biggest fan because I rarely miss a race. I was there for her first one. I'll probably be there for her last one.
So at Will Rogers, when she finally did start riding and we went down there for that first race, that was in 2021, and she won, I think, 4 races at Will Rogers. And it was only like in a few weeks. And then she came to Prairie Meadows last year. I never knew it until the end of the meet at Prairie Meadows last year that her personal goal was she wanted to hit the top 10. It took us to the last weekend, but she hit the top 10 last year here, which again, phenomenal, great jockey colony here, a lot of experience, a lot of veteran riders. And then she went to Oaklawn. And then when she was at Oaklawn, she would go to Will Rogers. So she was really riding 6-7 days a week. She would ride at Oaklawn Friday, Saturday, Sunday. She would leave Sunday night, drive 4 hours to Claremore, Oklahoma. She would ride there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then travel right back to Hot Springs, Arkansas. So 4 hours both way, her and her dog. Made me a little bit nervous. There was a lot of late night conversations to make sure that she made it there. But she got leading rider at Will Rogers this year. It was awesome to see her, what she learned at Oaklawn and then apply it at Will Rogers and go back and forth, and the different riding styles between the different jockey colonies, I think, taught her a lot. I've watched more horse racing in the last year than I have my whole life, and Todd's trained horses for 20 years, if that tells you anything. I pick up on a lot more things knowing that it's her riding and her riding style. But I don't get scared because she's always been happiest on a horse. I always feel like she's safe on the horse. She would come home and get off the school bus and come in and change her clothes, and she would ride until dark. There was times where she would come back in the yard after being gone and she was wet from here to here. And it's like, what did you do? Oh, did you know that there's this creek down there? And I'm like, Kylee, you're crossing the highway. That's like off limits. But she would come home, she'd find a swimming hole for her and her pony, and she just always wanted to ride.
My favorite part about watching Kylee race is watching her come to the win circle and seeing her face light up and everybody coming into the winner's circle and taking pictures with her and cheering her on.
It was a really awesome experience, and I think she won 4 races there in Claremore before she came to Iowa last summer and won like 20-something. And then last winter she went to Oaklawn, and I was down there at Oaklawn too working for a vet. She didn't get as much attention or ride as much in Oaklawn, but she came out of there a better rider for it. She really kicked butt at Claremore this spring, and she's having a really successful meet at Prairie Meadows now.
So here in Iowa, a lot of the trainers and jockeys and everybody on the backside kind of watched me and my sister grow up, and it feels like one big family, or I'm close with a lot of people on the backside here. So I feel like the opportunities here that I've been given have come from them watching me grow up a little bit. Like, they want to see me be successful.
Kylee Jordan, she's from Iowa and people know her here, so it's a lot easier to, you don't have to, she sells herself. You don't have to sell her here, but she likes to work and people like her, and obviously, she has the talent for it, so, she's one of the top apprentice riders in the country, so.
One of the jockeys that has helped me out here a lot is Alex Berzer. He's talked to me about a lot of things. I mean, even he still does now. He comes up to me after a race and he says, you could have maybe done this different, or watch what you did here. And in the mornings when we work horses together, he really is always trying to help me out, and I'm super grateful for that.
When I started riding, there was somebody in the room that taught me. And they sat me down and taught me right from wrong, and what we should do in what spot, and that's just the way this game is always done. You always try to help the younger riders, and then it's kind of neat to have these younger riders straight up admit, hey, this guy changed my career, or helped my career progress into what I am. So yeah, it's special. Kylee and I work a lot of horses together. We've got the same agent, so we're constantly working horses in company, and it's never a point where you sit them down and say, hey, you do this or you do that. You look over, hey, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try that? When we come up to the turn, do a little of this, do a little of that. And even sometimes it's even after a race where I think she rode one where she shouldn't have rode or done something, and I might even be mad, and I'll come back and, what were you doing? But it's all, at the end of the day, it's not something where we sit down and we discuss things. A lot of times it's just the little stuff, as we're jogging up to the track or jogging back to the track or during the work, and hey, Kylee, why don't you try this, or why don't you try that? Before the Prairie meet, we were over at Claremore, and I had a broke collarbone, so she was actually riding a lot of horses for my wife. So it was pretty interesting. After a race, well, how'd this one do this, or how'd this one do that, or my wife very seldom gives any kind of instruction. So I might, that morning, tell her, hey, try this or try that, and it's been really a pleasure to just sit there and watch her to develop into the horseman that she is.
I think with Prairie Meadows, The jockey colony here has been so supportive of Kylee. They have watched her grow up. The cool thing about Kylee is she's coachable. Like, she's truly just, she wants to learn. She wants to watch this replay with me. You know, what could I have done different? At Oaklawn, she had some great mentors down at Oaklawn, and she really applies it, which I think people that age might not be so coachable, perhaps, I'm not sure, but she is coachable. The jockey colony here has always been really supportive. They've never treated her like an apprentice. They've never treated her like a girl rider. They've never treated her any different. You know, it's been great. And the whole backside, I think, because they did see her grow up from a very, very little age and, you know, get her groom's license, to getting her pony license, to getting her gallop license. You know, I mean, she's just well-rounded when it comes to being at the racetrack, and she can really kind of do it all. And even to this day, if she comes over and gets on a horse for her dad, the other day her and Taylin switched roles. Taylin galloped and Kylee ponied. So the two girls complement each other, but nothing is above Kylee. I mean, she will do anything. I mean, it's not uncommon to see her washing buckets. I mean, she just jumps in, she's always been that way, so.
Like the sign says, it is a Jordan family business. My dad is a trainer. My mom, she does all of the behind the scenes everything. She really holds it all together. She does not get the credit she deserves for this family. I mean, she's like my bookkeeper. She's like my sister's bookkeeper. She's definitely my dad's bookkeeper. But I mean, anything we need or have questions on, my mom is doing tasks for us all day long. So even though she doesn't have an official title, or even though her license just says groom or hot walker, she really helps out a lot.
So Todd trains. We've always had just kind of a handful of horses, never a large string. It was always important for us to have a home base, which we still do up there by Fredericksburg. Todd, he's always kind of just taught the girls, very patient. He's kind of let them figure it out, shows them a few things. I still drive back and forth. So my Fridays, I drive down here, so either Thursday night or Friday, I'll drive the 110 miles down here to be with Todd and the girls. And then tonight, or Sunday night, I guess, I stay for the last race to get as much as I can out of the weekend, and I'll get home at 11:30 at night tonight and work from home. There at the farm, we've got some horses back there too, so I kind of go home, mow lawn, make sure the horses are all good, work, and then I'll turn around and come right back. So Todd's, Todd kind of holds the fort down here. Or so we let him believe. He grew up with 3 girls, so he's learned just to kind of roll with it a little bit. But yeah, to watch him with the girls you can't beat it. We talk a little bit about racetrack family, and at Oaklawn, she went down, clipped heels with another horse, and she went down. And I watch the races in the house, Todd watches the races in the garage. And so I knew what happened, and so I'm coming out, I see her go down, and it looks like she's making a move, and you start cheering, and then you see her go down, and then I ran out to the garage, and he's cheering, and I'm like, no, she goes down, and he's looking at me, so he kind of misses it. Immediately, I'm on the phone with Taylin. Taylin's like, she's up, she's talking, she's getting in the ambulance, they're thinking a shoulder. At the same time, her valet, Cody Ungles, who is her valet here and then down there, so he kind of takes care of all of her tack and makes sure she has what she needs. He's on the phone with Todd. So when you're talking about racetrack family, yeah, phone calls come in pretty quick. She's up, she's talking, whatever else. She dislocated her shoulder, so they took her by ambulance. That was hard because I'm at home in Iowa, Todd's at home in Iowa, and they're how many hours away? Had it been any worse, you know, we've got a long drive ahead of us. But she ended up being off about 5 weeks. She went to physical therapy. It was a blessing in disguise coming from mom, because after that she came back and she was more focused. She was more aware of her surroundings. She rides very smart. She's very patient. You don't see that with a lot of riders. You know, she can brake bad and she just sits and she just waits. And the lane comes and she's just like, okay, let's go, like it's all good. So I think that's just something natural that she's had. Her and Taylin both are well-rounded horsemen. I mean, they are jacks of all trades. I used to say master of none, but obviously Kylie's doing a great job of mastering this riding thing. Both of them can groom, both of them can pony, both of them can gallop. Taylin, of course, can't jockey. She's a little bit taller. But I think that really kind of heeds to their success, is just their being able to be well-rounded.
And then my sister, obviously, jockey, gallop girl, I don't know what she's doing half the time. But, and then I work for a vet on the backside, and I can gallop, pony. I do a little bit of everything because I don't like to stick to one thing. So it really is a family operation, and working with your family it can be really good at times and it can be really bad at times, as I'm sure like a lot of people know. But I do enjoy it, but like I said, I think that we probably put a lot of more pressure on ourselves working for our dad. We also struggle probably with communication, because it's just harder to go in and work for your family than it is to go work for somebody else, because you have to watch, even though you're more comfortable and you can say what you want, you have to watch what you say or you can hurt some feelings. But I wouldn't change it. I really enjoy it.
In wrestling, I wrestled 120, so I didn't really have to cut weight in wrestling, but I wish that I would have to, kind of get some experience on it. Like as a bug rider, as an apprentice, I have to cut weight a little bit. I struggled just a little bit, but I just go on runs and eat a little bit better, try to stay as healthy as I can. Before I started riding, I weighed more than I needed to start riding, and so I would work out without weights because I didn't want to put on any muscle because I was already heavy. And I would watch what I ate. I ate a lot of fruits and vegetables and try to cut out as many unnecessary carbs as I could. And I was able to drop that weight pretty easy. But now maintaining it is a little bit harder because I have to consistently watch what I eat and try to stay at the same weight instead of just dropping weight. So growing up, me and my sister would help break my dad's babies, and we each would have our own usually, and then if he had more than two, then we would help break the others together. But we kind of liked having competitions, like who could do a better job in a way. And anyways, one of the 2-year-olds that I broke for my dad when I was maybe 12 years old was Run Some Copies. And it's a really cool story because I got to ride her last year when I first started.
Run Some Copies, just the leader from Royally Adorable, who's coming back for more. And Stella Marie 3 wide and right there with those leaders as they line up midpoint on the turn. Run Fast and Loud is biding her time behind that wall of 3. She's close enough if good enough. Just needs to find a way out at the top of the stretch. Run Some Copies now asks for a little bit more and she opens it out. It's Run Some Copies, a clear leader inside the final furlong. Run Fast and Loud is coming out of the pack to chase her. Run Some Copies from Run Fast and Loud, who is closing but running out of time. Run Some Copies holds.
She was an awesome horse to ride just because she tried so hard for me, and I could feel that, and she just ran the best that she could every single time for me.
So I think a pretty special moment was when Kylee rode for her dad and win that first race. It was with a horse that we didn't expect at all. She rode a couple of pretty decent horses for her dad, hard knockers anyway, either Run Some Copies or Monday Confession. And she wins on a horse that we were not expecting it, so I think it was just like, wow. But to see her come in the winner's circle and Todd lead her in, you can't beat it. Even now, a year later, Taylin still, paddocks our horses, and Todd saddles, and Kylee rides, and I take pictures. But to see the three of them and their chemistry and just the way that they can just get it all done and support each other, there's a lot of pride in that. When you can do it with family, it's a lot of pride. Proud family, yeah. So yeah, that first win with her dad, pretty remarkable. They're all awesome, but when it's for her old man, it means a little bit more, for sure.
So if you follow horse racing or watch horse racing in Iowa, I'm sure you guys have heard of the horse Tyler's Tribe, which has recently become my most favorite horse that I've rode. The first time I got on him, I worked him, and he was very nice to get on as a baby, just super classy and didn't get worked up about nothing, and he was just really nice. And then I got on him another time, and I broke him out of the gates in the morning for a little extra practice before his race. And I was waiting on company, and I ended up having to stand behind the gates for 20 minutes or so, and he just stood there with his ears pricked, and I just knew something about him was really nice. And then the first time that I was able to ride him in a race, he just went out there and ran like he's ran hundreds of times.
And they're off. Tyler's Tribe very fast from the outside gate, strolling with Stella there, and rocking the dad bod is coming on through with Sangria Sky. Sangria Sky and Tyler's Tribe are quickest. Tyler's Tribe clears the field. Sangria Sky second, then rocking the dad bod, strolling with Stella. They're followed by Mock Swede, who's fifth right now, in front, just to the inside of Accelerate Us. And they're followed by Succession, who's 9 lengths off the lead. Then Annual Budget, Wiley Wade second last, Dark Whiskey is last. Tyler's Tribe not cornering very well. Plenty of room at the inside for Sangria Sky if he's good enough. Top of the stretch, Tyler's Tribe, the leader, now straightens out and sets sail for home, and now he's going on strongly. Tyler's Tribe and Kylee Jordan putting on a show in mid-stretch. 8-9 lengths in front. Good looking son of Sharp Azteca is going to win by double digits in his debut.
I think he won over 16 lengths or something like that, which is huge. And then I got to ride him the second time, and he ran about the same and against a lot tougher company than he did the previous race. And that was in a stakes race.
And they're off. Todd Chero broke alertly, so did Tyler's Tribe from the inside gate. Undelay is trying to go with them. Top Recruit came out in fourth, and Baytown Get It On, and Freed From Guilt is at the back of the pack as the 2-year-olds blaze a trail up the backstretch, and Tyler's Tribe has gotten clear at the half-mile pole. Tyler's Tribe for Kylee Jordan in front by 2.5 lengths, almost 3, as they head for the far turn. Todd Chero, Undelay right together second and third as Top Recruit starts to get in gear, and he's moving to the outside for his bid, and Top Recruit is advancing. He's about 3 wide on the turn, but still 4 lengths behind Tyler's Tribe, who's got a big lead coming to the top of the stretch. Tyler's Tribe turns him on down in the Prairie Gold Juvenile. He's in front by 4. Todd Chero is still there in the second spot. Suddenly Top Recruit doesn't have much left, and nobody's gaining on Tyler's Tribe. Tyler's Tribe 6 lengths in front as they come down toward the line, and this good-looking son of Sharp Azteca will win the Prairie Gold Juvenile by distance.
And then he's ran for a third time, and he ran the exact same way as he has been, and he won over 22, or I think 20-some lengths maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but and he just keeps getting better and better and faster, and he's a really cool horse to ride. Tyler's Tribe means a lot to me because of the story behind it. So Tyler's Tribe is actually named after the owner's grandson, Tom Leppick's grandson, Tyler. He was diagnosed with leukemia almost 2 years ago now, and so it's just a really cool experience to be a part of, and everybody is involved. I mean, when Tyler's Tribe is running, you look in the crowd and everybody's got shirts on that say Tyler Tribe, and it's just a very cool experience to be a part of. I'm very thankful to be a part of Tyler's Tribe's journey and excited to see where he goes in the future. So as you've probably gathered, I've kind of been all over the place at random times, and that's kind of how this journey has gone. I'm a very go-with-the-flow person, and when an opportunity comes up, I kind of just take it if I think it's right, and that's kind of how my future's looking. I haven't made a whole lot of plans, but I'm planning on going back to Oaklawn this winter, and we'll see what happens after that, or see if that even happens.
As far as what the future holds, I don't know. I would like to say as a parent, she would probably follow the Prairie Meadows, Remington, Oaklawn circuit, just because, one, she likes the Midwest. Prairie Meadows is home for her. Iowa is home for her. Her family's here. Not to say that she wouldn't venture out, but we'll see. It'd be hard, because I think she could leave me, and I think she could leave Todd, but I don't think she could leave Taylin. By no means. But we'll see.
She's really laid back and go with the flow, so she doesn't really know what her future plans are yet, but she'll figure it out, just like her whole career has just been kind of a go with the flow moment.